When I tried to claim my grandpa's watch, my uncle said I gave up family by getting therapy and sold his stuff on Craigslist, even his letters to me, while my cousin mocked me on TikTok until I found the buyer who held something more valuable than the watch. The door slammed so hard it rattled the porch light. My uncle's voice cut through the wood. "You're not family anymore. You gave that up when you got therapy." I stood there holding a folded legal envelope from my grandpa's estate. I hadn't seen these people in nearly 2 years, not since I stopped pretending that everything in our family was okay. But I thought Grandpa's death would make them, I don't know, human again. Apparently not. They'd already sold off his stuff. I saw the listing myself: vintage men's watch, 1940s, engraved, great condition. My grandpa's watch. The one he used to let me hold while he told me how he'd earned it after fixing airplanes in the war. He promised it'd be mine one day. He said, "You remember me by this, kid, not the stories this." And now it was sitting on Craigslist for $150. I tried calling my cousin, Jenna, first. She laughed and said, "You should have been around more then." A few hours later, I found a TikTok she made, crying fake tears, saying, "Some people think therapy makes them better than family," with the caption, "Rip Grandpa's skull." It already had over 1,000 likes. No one, not my mom, not my other cousins, said a word. Not one defense, not one text. So yeah. I sat in my car down the street, watching random strangers walk into the house, carrying out boxes of what used to be Grandpa's world. His fishing hat, his pipe collection, even the letters he wrote me as a kid when I was at camp, the ones where he'd draw stick figure cartoons and tell me to keep being brave. I saw one woman hold them up, laugh, and stuff them in her tote bag. I felt something twist deep inside me, past sadness, past shock, something quieter and colder. That's when I saw him, the buyer. A guy in his late 30s, tall, wearing a flannel jacket. He paid my uncle cash, shook his hand, and walked off with Grandpa's watch. I almost jumped out of the car right then, but I froze. Something in how he looked at the box caught my attention. He didn't look like a collector. He looked careful. He turned, glanced toward my car, and nodded. Not in recognition, more like he knew. That night I couldn't sleep. My phone buzzed with another TikTok notification. Jenna posting a video of my uncle drinking by the fire, showing off Grandpa's medals in the background, laughing. Caption: "He's finally at peace, #family strong." But peace wasn't what I felt. I felt like something sacred had been looted. And then, just after midnight, I got a message request. It was from the Craigslist buyer. "Hey," it said. "You're the granddaughter, right? I think you should see what was inside the watch before they find out." My heart stopped cold. My grandpa, Frank, was the only stable thing in my life growing up. My mom was the youngest of 3. Her brothers, Rick, the one who slammed the door, and Gary, were the kind of men who got drunk at family barbecues and started fights over who Grandpa loved more. Spoiler: he loved none of that crap. He just wanted peace. When I was little, I'd spend summers at Grandpa's house in San Luis Obispo. We'd walk down to the pier, fish, come back, and he'd pull that silver watch off his wrist, set it next to me, and say, "This'll tick for you one day. Family means you keep the time for the next one." He meant it like a metaphor about continuity, but it became literal for me. That watch was ours. When I turned 16, I told my mom I wanted therapy. Grandpa said, "Good, you can't heal what you won't face." Rick and Gary called me dramatic, attention-seeking, soft. They said Grandpa spoiled me, turned you into one of those snowflake kids. My mom stayed quiet. She always did. After Grandpa fell in 2021, I was the one who stayed at the hospital. I was there when he passed. The others couldn't even show up until after the will was read. The lawyer told us Grandpa's assets weren't much: a few savings bonds, the house, some personal belongings. But he'd written in his own handwriting that the watch goes to my granddaughter, Emily. That line changed everything. Rick and Gary flipped, said Grandpa wasn't in his right mind, that I'd influenced him while he was weak. They contested the will, dragged it out for months. I didn't fight back. I was too tired. My therapist told me to let go, that material things didn't matter. But then I found out they'd sold everything in the house before the court even finalized it. No estate sale, no notice, just boxes listed online. That's when I started checking Craigslist under their zip code. I found listing after listing that matched my memories. Old pipe set, handwritten letters from veteran, 1940s wristwatch, working. That last one made my chest tighten. I met the buyer through the chat feature on Craigslist. His name was Nate. He said he'd already bought the watch but didn't mind me asking about it. I told him it was my grandfather's, that I'd been disinherited. He went quiet for a while, then said, "Funny thing, there's a note tucked inside the back. Didn't seem like your uncle knew it was there." I didn't know what to say. A few hours later, he messaged again. The engraving on the note says, if you're reading this, you need to know the truth about the lockbox." I didn't even know Grandpa had a lockbox, and that's when everything started to unravel. The next morning, I met Nate at a diner off Highway 101. I was shaking the whole drive there, not from fear exactly, but from the kind of adrenaline that builds when you know something's about to crack open. He was waiting in a booth by the window, the watch box sitting in front of him. He slid it across the table like it was evidence. "You're Emily, right?" he asked. I nodded. He pushed the watch toward me. It looked smaller than I remembered, the silver dulled, the band more worn. But when I turned it over, the engraving caught the light. "To Frank, keep time, keep faith, 1944. Nate motioned to the tiny screwdriver next to his coffee cup. "Go ahead," I hesitated. My hands were sweating so bad I almost dropped it. But when I pried open the back, a folded strip of yellowed paper slid out. The ink had bled a little, but the handwriting was clear. Grandpa's. If you find this, it means they sold the house before the truth came out. The lockbox is buried in the old shed behind the lemon tree. Don't trust your uncles. They know what they did. You'll understand when you find the key." I must have read it 10 times. Nate said quietly, "I figured it wasn't just about money. The old man seemed like he had unfinished business." He refused to take the watch back, even when I tried to pay him. "It's yours," he said. Something about that guy's name, Frank, stuck with me. He looked like someone who meant what he wrote. That afternoon, I drove to Grandpa's old house. The new owners weren't home, but the shed in the back still stood. Weathered but locked. The lemon tree out front had grown wild, branches scratching the roof. I started digging at the base of it, feeling ridiculous, until the shovel hit something solid. It was a metal lockbox, rusted but still intact. And that's when I heard footsteps crunching behind me. "Looking for something, sweetheart?" It was Uncle Rick. He was standing there in his work boots, beer can in hand, a smirk that made my stomach drop. "Kinda weird for someone who's not family to be trespassing, huh?" I tried to hide the box behind me, but he'd already seen it. His smile disappeared. "Where'd you find that?" Before I could answer, he stepped forward fast, faster than a man his size should have been able to move. He grabbed the box and shoved me back, his voice low and tight. "You shouldn't have come back here." I remember the sound of the lockbox hitting the ground and something inside shifting, like paper sliding against metal. Then his words, he was supposed to take that secret to the grave. And in that moment, I realized something I hadn't before. This wasn't just about inheritance. Grandpa had hidden something they were terrified of. Rick didn't hit me. He didn't have to. His voice did the damage. "Your grandpa ruined everything," he muttered, pacing in circles, gripping that lockbox like it might explode. "We told him to let it die, but no, he had to write it down, always had to leave proof." "Proof of what?" I asked. He froze, then glanced toward the house like he was deciding how much to say. "You think your grandpa was a saint. He wasn't. He destroyed our lives once already. That box," he jabbed a finger toward it, "is full of lies that were supposed to stay buried." I could tell by the tremor in his hands that he wasn't as sure as he sounded. He walked toward his truck, muttering, "You didn't see anything. Forget the box. Forget this whole thing." He threw it in the passenger seat, slammed the door, and sped off down the road. I stood there, dust still swirling in the air, heart hammering like crazy. 2 hours later, I was sitting in a coffee shop parking lot trying to calm down when a text came through from an unknown number. Unknown. "You shouldn't have dug up the lockbox. He's panicking." Me, who is this? Unknown, someone who knows what's in it. Don't let them destroy it. I froze. My first thought was Nate, but when I called him, he didn't answer. That night, I couldn't stop replaying Rick's words. Proof. Lies. Destroyed our lives. None of it made sense. Grandpa was quiet, gentle, the kind of man who apologized to spiders before taking them outside. What could he possibly have done to destroy anyone's life? Then it hit me, the old filing cabinet in the garage. I remembered sitting on the floor as a kid, doodling while Grandpa sorted papers. He'd been muttering something about insurance records and making it right. I pulled over near the house again after dark. The driveway was empty. The shed was locked, but I still had the spare key on my old keychain. Inside, the smell hit first: mildew, old oil, dust. I found the spot where the box had been. The dirt was freshly disturbed, a few metal shavings left behind. And there, half buried, was a second object. Smaller, wrapped in plastic. It wasn't just one lockbox. I tore it open. Inside was an old key taped to a letter with my name written in Grandpa's shaky handwriting. Emily, if you've come this far, it means Rick found the first box. That one's just the decoy. The real one is in the bank vault under my name. You'll need this key. What's inside explains everything about your mother. My mother, not Rick. Not Gary. Her. The next morning, I drove straight to the local credit union. The woman at the desk said the box had been inactive for 3 years. But yes, my name was on the authorization list, handwritten by my grandfather himself. She led me to the back. When she opened it, the first thing I saw was a folder labeled Accident 1998. Inside were black and white photos of a car crash, crumpled metal, a burned-out sedan, a police report, and then a birth certificate. My birth certificate, except the mother's name wasn't my mom's. It was someone else's entirely. I sat in that cold vault room staring at the paper until my brain just stopped making sense of words. The name listed under mother: Rebecca Lynn Hayes. Not my mom's name. My mom was Laura Reynolds. I called the only person I could think of Nate. He finally picked up, his voice low, cautious. You found something, didn't you? I told him about the second lockbox, about the birth certificate, about the car crash file labeled 1998. He was quiet for a long time before asking, wasn't that the year your dad died? My throat tightened. Yeah, they told me it was a drunk driver. Mom barely talked about it. He exhaled sharply. I think your family's been lying to you for decades. That night, I spread everything out on my kitchen table, the papers, the photos, the note. I noticed something small but strange in the crash report. Under vehicle owner, it didn't list my dad. It listed Richard Reynolds, my Uncle Rick. I went cold. If Rick owned the car that killed my father, then the story I'd been told my whole life, that some stranger hit us, was a lie. My mom must have known. Maybe Grandpa found out, and that's what destroyed their lives. Maybe he buried the truth to protect me. The rage that came after that wasn't fiery. It was surgical, cold, focused. I started a plan. Step 1. Copy everything. I scanned the documents, took photos, made digital backups, and stored them in a cloud folder labeled Taxes 2024. Step 2. Find proof that Rick and Gary had tampered with the estate and sold Grandpa's possessions illegally. Easy. I still had screenshots of their Craigslist listings and messages where Rick admitted selling before probate ended. Step 3. Expose them, but not with a Facebook post or a screaming confrontation. I wanted precision. I wanted them cornered by their own words. I reached out to a lawyer Grandpa had once mentioned, a man named Jonathan Price. He handled Grandpa's insurance years ago. When I told him what I found, his tone changed completely. I knew Frank was keeping records, he said. He told me once, if something happens to me, the truth dies with my boys. You're his failsafe. I gave him everything. He said he'd contact the district attorney's office quietly. There were potential fraud charges, maybe even obstruction of justice, depending on what they'd covered up about the crash. But I wasn't done. I wanted them to feel what I felt, that hollow humiliation of being erased. So I reached out to Jenna, my cousin, the one who mocked me online. I told her I wanted to talk. In person, I said. There's something about Grandpa you need to see. She agreed, probably hoping to record more drama for TikTok. When she showed up 2 nights later, I had the documents laid out on the table. She walked in laughing until she saw the photos. Her face went white. What is this? She stammered. I said quietly, this is the reason your dad's about to lose everything. And that's when she whispered something I didn't expect. You don't understand. Grandpa wasn't protecting you, he was protecting Mom. When Jenna said that, I thought I'd misheard her. Protecting Mom, I repeated. What the hell are you talking about? She looked like she wanted to run but didn't. Her voice shook. It wasn't Uncle Rick who owned the car that crashed. It was registered under his name, yeah, but Mom, your mom, she was the one driving that night. I felt everything inside me go weightless. No. No, she was in the passenger seat. She told me she was. She lied. Jenna cut in, tears spilling over now. They all did. Grandpa made them, said if the truth came out, you'd never forgive her. He made Rick take the blame because he already had a record for DUIs. It was easier, cleaner. Your mom was drunk, Emily. She was the one who killed your dad. For a second, I couldn't breathe. The whole house buzzed with silence, that heavy kind that feels like air collapsing. I stared at the crash photos again, the angles, the positions, the burned-out frame. The report hadn't said who was behind the wheel. Grandpa must have pulled strings to make sure of that. Why are you telling me this now? I finally asked. Jenna looked sick. Because Rick's losing it. He thinks you're going to go public, and he's saying if you do, he'll tell everyone what your mom did. I didn't want you to hear it from him. I sank into a chair, shaking. She let me grow up thinking some stranger killed my dad. She couldn't live with it, Jenna said. You don't know what Grandpa did after. He paid everyone off, the cops, the insurance adjuster, even that lawyer you found. He covered the whole thing up. And when you started therapy and talking about truth and healing, they panicked. They thought you might remember something. My mind was spinning. Therapy. That's why they turned on me, not because I was soft. Because they were scared I'd dig too deep. That night I called my mom. She didn't pick up, but she texted back. Please don't do this. I was going to tell you one day. He made me promise not to. I had to protect you. Protect me? By letting me mourn a lie for 20 years. The next morning, Nate called again. I heard what happened, he said quietly. You still want to go through with the plan? Yes, I said. My voice didn't even shake this time. He hesitated. Just so you know, this could destroy her. Your mom, I said. Good. I wasn't angry anymore. I was clear. Crystal clear. I went through my grandfather's file one last time, making sure every document was scanned and timestamped. I gathered proof of the estate fraud, the crash cover-up, and my mother's involvement. Then I started sending out packages, one to the district attorney, one to the state bar, and one to a local journalist who'd covered corruption cases for decades. But I saved one envelope for last, hand-delivered. It was for my mom. When she opened it, I told her quietly, "This is everything you lied about. I'm done carrying it." She whispered, "You don't know what it cost me to keep that secret." And I said, "You don't know what it cost me to live it." My mom showed up at my apartment 2 days later. She looked wrecked, eyes swollen, makeup smeared, the kind of exhaustion that comes from years of guilt catching up all at once. She held the manila envelope I'd given her like it was a live grenade. I didn't invite her in. I just said, "Say what you need to say." She nodded slowly. "Fine, you want the truth, you'll get it." She told me everything. Back in 1998, she and my dad were fighting constantly. Money, drinking, everything. She'd found out he was planning to leave her, take me with him. That night, she went to Rick's place to cool off. He offered her a few drinks, told her to relax. When my dad showed up later to talk, they got into an argument that spilled into the driveway. My mom tried to leave with me in the car, but my dad blocked the driver's side door. She was drunk, furious. She shoved him, got in, and slammed the door. He tried to open it again, that's when she hit the gas. She said she didn't even see him go under. The impact threw him against the mailbox and then under the wheel. The car veered off the road, hit a tree, and burst into flames. She crawled out before it caught. My dad didn't. Rick called Grandpa before the cops. He told him what happened. Grandpa showed up first, pulled me, a toddler then, from the back seat, and made a decision that would twist everything for decades. He told the police that Rick had been driving, that my mom had been in the passenger seat. He bribed a responding officer with money from his savings. He told my mom she was going to get clean, stay quiet, and raise me like nothing happened. She sobbed when she told me that part. He said it was mercy, said if I went to prison, you'd end up in foster care. He told Rick he owed him, that's why he let him take control of everything after he died. The will, the house, all of it. Frank traded my freedom for their silence. She looked at me then, eyes red and raw. That's why I didn't fight when they cut you off. They threatened to tell you. I thought maybe if you hated them instead of me, it would be easier. It wasn't easier. It was devastating. I asked her one last question. Why didn't you tell me after Grandpa died? You had your chance, she whispered, because the truth doesn't set people free, Emily. It just changes who you hate. I'll never forget that line, not because it was wise, because it was cowardly. That's when I realized something dark about my grandfather, too. The man I'd idolized wasn't merciful. He was calculating. He didn't protect me out of love. He controlled everyone with guilt. My mom's silence, Rick's compliance, the entire family's fear, all because of one lie that he buried, knowing it would rot the family from the inside out. He wasn't trying to protect a legacy. He was testing it. And I was done being part of his experiment. The day everything went public, the sky over San Luis Obispo was gray and heavy, the kind of weather that makes everything feel like it's holding its breath. The local news broke the story first. Estate fraud and decades-old crash cover-up linked to prominent Reynolds family. They had everything. The forged will, the fake ownership transfer, the sealed accident report, even the proof of the police payoff. The DA's office confirmed they were reopening the 1998 case. I didn't have to do much, just one anonymous email with the files attached. I'd used a VPN, a burner account, everything traced back to nowhere. I even threw in screenshots of Jenna's TikToks, just to show how proud they'd been while selling off Grandpa's lies. By noon, reporters were parked outside Rick's house. By nightfall, he'd been taken in for questioning, not for the crash, but for perjury, fraud, and tampering with estate property. The irony, he'd always bragged about being the honest one. Gary's business tanked within a week. His clients didn't want to be associated with a guy under investigation for financial crimes. Jenna deleted every social account she had, though not before someone saved the videos where she mocked me. They resurfaced under the hashtag #FamilyFromHell, but the hardest part came when my mom showed up again. This time at the courthouse, she didn't speak to me, didn't even look my way. When the reporters shouted questions at her, she just said, "No comment." She took a plea deal later, obstruction of justice, falsifying a statement. Minimal time, but enough to leave a record. I didn't fight it. I didn't forgive her either. The watch sits on my dresser now. I had it cleaned and fixed, it still ticks, steady and quiet. I wear it sometimes, not because I want to remember my family, but because I want to remember myself. The part of me that stopped letting them define what love or loyalty was supposed to look like. A few months after everything blew up, I got one last message from Nate. "You did what your grandpa couldn't. You ended the cycle." I met him again for coffee not long after. We didn't talk much about the case. We talked about starting over, what that actually means when your roots are poisoned. Before he left, he asked, "So, what are you gonna do now that you've got the truth?" I looked down at the watch ticking between my fingers and said, "Finally, I'm keeping time for me." Then I walked out of that cafe into the cool air, leaving the family name and the lies that came with it behind for good.